Hi all, I had some thoughts about that blown opportunity from last week's game when the opponent just played bishop e7. Before I go into specifics, the concept I want to sort of raise is this idea called lazy evaluation. It's one of the more interesting ideas I picked up when studying functional languages when I was studying computer science major. Now in functional languages, if you have something which is true, and you know one bit's true, and it's being ORed with all these other conditions which seem really complex. So say you have condition 1, 1 equals 1, that's true. Condition 2, 16 equals 4 times 4, and you've got condition 3, and they get more and more complex. But you know one of them's true, and you know it's OR, so you don't actually have to evaluate all the others because one of them's true. So it's called lazy evaluation because it saves evaluating all the different possibilities. Okay, say there were 8 conditions. The first one's true, and if any of the 8 are true, then you know the whole thing's true. You don't have to evaluate all of them. It won't make any difference to the outcome. Now, how do we use this idea in chess? I mean, I thought of an idea of using this idea in chess. Well, the first most obvious application actually is the weakness of the last move. Instead of evaluating all the positions, all the weaknesses and strengths in the position, you look at the last move as a kind of lazy evaluation because you're not starting from scratch. You're just looking, well, this goes here, so there's no bishop g7 anymore because it's not there. And that might imply, well, then queen f4. So that's a kind of lazy evaluation example as well, because what you've done, if you're looking, if you're sort of assuming that the position was safe for the opponent, their last move did something, but what didn't it do? And it's kind of, instead of looking at all the possibilities, from scratch, you're really cheating in a way, just looking for the weakness of the last move. So that's an instance of lazy evaluation. But if you've got 5 minutes on your clock, maybe this is another very important instance of lazy evaluation. You might have several possibilities. So the one I was tempted for, of course, was knight e4, which turned out to have a bit of a flaw in it. Because my idea was to play queen e5, then I noticed queen takes e5, so I thought, oh, I'll block it brilliantly, and then there's no defence. I expected the rook move and then you get mated, but there was a defence, unfortunately. But the thing is, okay, we could say that knight e4 carries with it some sort of theoretical risk. If anything did go wrong, even if you can't see it, there's a kind of theoretical risk associated with knight e4 and giving up a piece, like Tal style. I know Tal got away with it most of the time, giving up pieces, but there's a theoretical risk created, and if you look at queen f4, there's actually far less theoretical risk. Of course, there's emotional attachment to the knight I had, as I mentioned in the previous video, but let's look at these two moves in terms of theoretical risk and examine that concept of lazy evaluation again. You see, if we evaluated the risk just in theory of queen f4, even say we had 2-3 minutes left, okay, there's a sort of emotion, okay, oh darn, losing the knight, but the dark squares would have been weakened anyway. It wasn't really a problem. Now with knight e4, there's a theoretical risk, and given limited time constraints, isn't it the principle of lazy evaluation again that you can actually compare both of these without actually doing that much analysis? That queen f4 seems safer is based on a kind of lazy evaluation as well of the last move weakness, that g7 is harder to defend. But not only that, in comparing these two moves, the idea that of theoretical risk, does a move have theoretical risk? And you might not be able to assess the risk because, let's face it, we're rubbish compared to calculating engines. Engines in a millionth of a second are going to be calculating more than GMs, probably. Or not a millionth of a second. Well, you know what I mean. And a few seconds can see a lot more than most grandmasters, tactically. So our tactics, really, most of the time, are rubbish. So when we play moves that we sense have theoretical risk, okay, there could be a reason that you want to play brilliantly, you want to play like Tau, but I think that reason has to be balanced with potential regret later on, that if you did have a winning position, why did you play like Tau? Did you really want yet another, immortal game? I guess I was looking for aesthetically, as well, that this is a brilliant interference tactic. Oh, this is going to be brilliant on YouTube. Oh, another immortal game. So there's that crept into it, as well as the emotional attachment. But from the lazy evaluation, say we build in lazy evaluation as a tool in our thinking, that actually, even in functional languages, as I say you had to calculate, it seemed as though you had to calculate the condition of that being true or false, this being true or false, etc. But the thing is, if one of them is true, the whole thing's true. So let's go back to this chess example. And we have this all the time, this idea that we have this idea of intuitive risk assessment without actually knowing the refutation. So maybe I put it to you that maybe the concept of lazy evaluation has a wide application in chess, not just from just checking the weakness of the last move, but also in comparing theoretical risk of different candidate moves without necessarily calculating them. So you can sometimes go for a safer option, just intuitively safer option, and steer away, and find out later in post-mortem maybe the details, that if you had chose the risky option rather than in the game, which is more punishing. So in the game, unfortunately, there was a flaw with knight e4, that the brilliant idea, well, first he didn't take with that because that would be immediate, like mating. He took with this pawn, and unfortunately after queen e5 there isn't the rook d8 defense, but a simple forcing move, unfortunately, knocking out my rook, which was going to be critical for getting this attack. And now the game has become difficult to win, very difficult to win, and it was a draw by potential. So anyway, I'm just putting it to you basically in a nutshell. In conclusion, lazy evaluation, does it have application in chess? So I'm drawing the idea from functional languages, how functions can evaluate to true or false. Can we also use the same thing in two ways: weakness of the last move and comparing theoretical risk of moves? Feedback welcome. I look forward to your comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.